My name's Polly Ho-Yen. I'm the author of Boy in the Tower, Where Monsters Lie, and I've come from Bristol today.
My name's NIkesh Shukla. I am a writer and I live in Bristol, but I'm from London.
My name's Bali Rai. I'm an author of children's, teenage, young adult novels. I come from Leicester, which is where I live. And I was asked to take part by Random House, and because I know Commonword and Pete, this is a project that I've been a part of, or certainly the conversations to do with it, for a very long time.
Well, it's been brilliant. I think it's been about connecting writers together and just to have that and to kind of really bridge the gap, I suppose, between the publishing world and everything that's happening and the writers who are, who are going to be part of that world. They're going to be the next voices. So it's exciting. So it just feels like we're kind of, through this event, hopefully there's going to be the next sort of lot of voices that are kind of coming up, which is brilliant.
I think it's a great opportunity for writers outside of London who aren't necessarily in the London literary scene to have access to some of the best agents and editors around the country and help them to demystify the publishing industry. And also just being in the room with editors and people of the industry at that calibre can make the difference in a marginalised writer's career. It can give them the confidence to keep going.
Just the fact that it's practical. The idea is, for years and years and years, we've been having conversations, right, about bringing more diverse writers to the fore, and the people that sign the checks, the people that pay the money, are never involved. So it's essentially just a shouting match, and we all get depressed, and we all go to the pub or whatever we do to relax, and then we do it again, and we get depressed again. This one is different because it's a practical project. There are steps that can be taken. So some of these writers that are a part of this process are going to be taken on and be given the opportunity to have their book out there, have their voice out there, and to have the support of the biggest publisher that we have. So it's a very welcome, practical project.
I think what I love about WriteNow is the fact that it is providing the tools for people and giving advice to people who want to write and voices that are underrepresented in the publishing world, and it's kind of giving that opportunity for those unheard voices and underrepresented voices to be heard.
Simply, we need to see a reflection of our society through our books, which at the moment, we're working towards, and it's brilliant that Penguin Random House are really addressing this issue through these events. But our children need to see their faces and hear their voices in the literature that they're reading, and they need to have those role models as well of writers who are from their areas and from their backgrounds who are making a success from writing and enjoying being part of this industry.
Because otherwise we live in a world where we have what Chimamanda Adichie refers to as the single story, and it's a monoculture, and if we want to believe that the UK is a multicultural society, then we should have multicultural voices. Representation is very, very important, not just for the people of colour in this country, but for English people as well.
I think there's lots of reasons why, but for me, one of the main ones is that diversity should be the mainstay of British literature. We live in a country where 15% of the population is what they call black and minority ethnic. We live in a country where roughly 40% of the population, the poorest 40%, live on something like 8% of the country's wealth. So we have a lot of poverty in cities like Manchester, Leicester, and those voices aren't there. We're not hearing the voices of ordinary, everyday people. We've just had this horrendous Brexit vote, and all the people that voted to leave are all being crucified as racists and this, that, and the other. Most of them aren't racist, they just hate politicians, and we don't have their voices. We don't know what those people are thinking. All we do is get an imposition of this is what people in Manchester think, right? Or this is what people in Birmingham think. It's about time those people had their voices in literature so that we actually get to hear their stories and we get to empathise with their worldview rather than just a white middle-class worldview, which is what we generally tend to get.
I think it is incredibly important because we live in a world where we need to hear those voices, and I think to combat sort of ignorance and fear, etc., and the way to do that is to have more diverse voices and just become more aware of other people and other cultures and other religions and other classes and so on. And that's exactly what Right Now is about. It's about giving people a voice and saying, you know, that saying the publishing world wants to hear from you, and about time.
Oh, I love it. I've just spent all day saying, tell me about your book, and then just sort of just being transported to different worlds, and everyone is, you know, everyone is so original, and it's always a treat, I think, for writers to get together and to share what they're working on, because so often you're just by yourselves, and yeah, it's been like a bit like a kind of sweet shop experience for me, just to hear what everyone's been working on and what they're passionate about.
I love coming to Manchester. I did Bad Language at Manchester and in Manchester, and I did the Manchester Literature Festival, and they're both amazing spaces for writers, and the crowds are really supportive and excited, and it's just a really warm experience, and there's been some great writers who've come out of Manchester as well.
What do I think? I've had very little chance, to be honest, to hear much about the writing. They've been so engaged, the writers upstairs, with doing the little bits and bobs, you know, the sort of warm-up, and they've got so many questions. But the little bits that I've heard, it's like the writers I met in Birmingham, the last one of these I did. There's lots of great ideas, there's lots of enthusiasm, there's a lot of passion. And from what I've heard so far, the little bit I have, it all sounds great. It sounds, you know, weird to say this, but this is kind of what I was expecting, because this is, if I went into an audience full of kind of writers who were all white from the southeast and from London, they'd be passionate about their ideas too. The key to this is that passion exists in every community around Britain, and it's great that Right Now is giving these people who are normally unheard from an opportunity to raise their voice. It's fantastic.
Well, I'm just going to rip off Malorie Blackman, and I'm sure she sort of said, just don't give up, which is what we keep hearing over and over again, whether it's with your edit, whether it's whether you need to start a new project and become more confident in it perhaps, or whether it's just sending it out to another publisher, another agent. But if you believe in your writing and you love your story and you believe in it and you're excited by it and you enjoy it and you want to be heard, then just persevere.
Keep going, we need you.
The biggest piece of advice I can give aspiring writers on a placement like this, on a project like this, is to be as, how can I put this? You've got to be aware of what the business is about. You've got to be open to the idea that the way you think publishing might be, the way you dreamt it would be, is completely wrong. And the practical reality of day-to-day publishing as a business is something that you need to not only be aware of, you need to go into it understanding that publishing works in a certain way, and that's not going to change for you. So you need to accommodate yourself to that and be very, very, just very, very willing not to compromise on your passion and your ideas, but to compromise on the way your career might start, the places it might go, what editors might do with your work. You've got to be open to criticism, open to editing, and open to the idea that publishing essentially at its heart is a business, and you're going to become one of the cogs within that. So I think being practical about the realities is vitally important.
I think my major piece of advice for authors would be, don't give up. You have a voice, use it, your voice is unique. Don't be afraid to have your own style and write your own stories, and don't take no for an answer. Don't give up.